A teen boy is the city's latest murder victim. He died in hospital after being shot overnight in the Warden and Danforth Road area. We are live at that crime scene with the very latest.
The University of Toronto says that it will meet with pro-Palestinian protesters today after they refused today's 8 a.m. deadline to leave.
And a solidarity gathering was held at a Jewish school hit by gunfire on the weekend. The mayor and police chief attended to show their support.
Good afternoon and welcome to CP24 Live at Noon. I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Lena Latafat. Thank you for joining us. Labor unions, faculty and staff joined pro-Palestinian protesters near the encampment today as they defy a trespass order to leave King's College Circle.
CP24's Lindsay Biscaya is live at the U of T with the latest. Lindsay.
Yeah, that's right, Bakari and Lena. So that trespass notice was 8 a.m. this morning. That was the deadline for it, at least. And as you say, that has basically been defied by protesters here. The university has been asking them to dismantle this encampment. But as you can see, even despite all this rain, it is in full force. It does not seem as though there's any movement to leave. And protesters have been telling us they're not going to leave until the university meets their demands. So now this is where we're at. The university has filed for an injunction. And so we're waiting for a court hearing. We're being told that it could take anywhere from 24 to 48 hours for a court hearing to be scheduled. Some of the protesters has been telling us that a court hearing will be tomorrow, but we have yet to have that confirmed. But at this point, that is really what we've been waiting for, just to hear if there's any movement on that front. We do know there was a rally this morning held by protesters, and members and other groups and unions even came out to show support for the people of Palestine, but also for the people in this encampment. Hundreds of people there, lots of energy despite the weather. And we were speaking with people there about why it was important to come out and show their solidarity. Have a listen.
Despite of all of this, despite all the horrors and atrocities we are seeing every single day for the last 234 days, U of T continues to tell us they cannot make commitments. And that we must go through bureaucratic committees that will lead us nowhere. But we do not have time for committees. We do not have time to wait.
What we are witnessing on this campus and around the world is nothing short of a global movement of students and young people standing up for a better world, a world of peace and justice for everyone. And they are holding our leaders and institutions to account. In Frank, the kids are all right.
So just a little bit of background info as well, Lena and Bakari. The university has been asking these protesters to dismantle their encampment because some other students say that they are feeling unsafe on campus. But again, these protesters saying they have three very specific demands that they would like the university to meet. And so that's what they're waiting for. We do know the university and students were in negotiations last night, and they're going to be in negotiations once again tonight starting at 5 p.m., trying to come to some kind of peaceful resolution. But we'll have to wait and see what happens there if there's any kind of movement. For now, back to you.
Okay, CP24's Lindsay Biscaya live from the University of Toronto campus. Thank you, Lindsay. Well, politicians rallied in support of the Jewish community. This is after a North York Jewish girls' school was hit by gunfire. It happened over the weekend.
CP24's Courtney Heels is at the school near Dufferin and Finch and joins us live with the latest developments. Courtney.
And Lena, Bakari, there were so many people attending this solidarity gathering that they actually had to shut the road down. People filled the streets. They say they wanted to show support for the students and staff who were going to this Jewish all-girls elementary school first thing in the morning. So to be there during the school drop-off, we had a chance to speak with quite a few people, with parents, staff members, people who live in this neighborhood. And they say, well, it's terrifying what this school saw over the weekend. They also say they're standing strong and they have a very strong message for the community, and that is they will continue to walk forward. They won't let that hate deter them. We'll let you hear from the principal of this school. We talked to him a little bit about the video that they say they have, surveillance video of the shooting that happened early Saturday morning. Here's what he saw.
We were able to see the suspects driving up on the street right here, parking right here across the street from where we are right now. They came up to the fence and fired shots, and they had people waiting for them in the car, and then they drove off. We're grateful to the federal government. We got a SIP grant a couple years back, and we installed this security fence that you see here, which enabled us to have it closed, and they only had to stand behind the fence, and they weren't able to get onto the property.
So this is a very active Toronto police investigation. What we heard from police, they say they were called to the school at about 5 in the morning over reports of shots fired at the elementary school. Behind me, you can see they've actually boarded up one of the windows that was struck by a bullet. We also heard that from the school. They say they are now making the repairs. And they also said they've already got fencing up around this school, again, as an extra layer of protection. So obviously they're really, really concerned over this shooting and who is responsible for it. Police haven't provided any sort of update today. And the chief of police, Myron Demke, was here earlier. We were hoping to catch an opportunity to speak with him to see where things stand with this investigation. We didn't get that chance, but we do know police say they're putting all their resources into trying to figure out who is responsible for this. In the meantime, there is still a really heavy police presence in this area. In fact, just looking over my shoulder, I see a police cruiser here in the parking lot. We noticed first thing this morning, guys, there were several police officers here, and they say they are going to stand by this school and be in the community given what unfolded over the weekend. Over to you.
All right, Courtney Heels reporting live. Thank you.
And a boy's dead after a shooting in the East End. It happened overnight. So police are at Warden Avenue and Kanaraki Crescent, which is north of Danforth Road. This is a live look at the situation. You can see an officer standing right there. They say that a male youth was shot around 1 o'clock in the morning. He was pronounced dead in hospital. There's no word on the age of the boy or if there are any suspects.
And Peel police say they have busted a highly orchestrated auto theft ring. Investigators say they seized more than 300 stolen vehicles as part of an operation dubbed Project Odyssey. The recovered vehicles have a combined value of more than $33 million. Some of the vehicles were taken during violent carjackings. Police allege a local trucking company was facilitating shipments of stolen vehicles to the Port of Montreal, where they were to be exported to the Middle East. 16 people have been arrested in connection with the investigation, and arrest warrants have been issued for another 10. Police say 14 of the suspects identified in the probe were out on a form of release or bail for auto theft related offenses. More than 300 charges have been laid so far.
And Ontario's privacy commissioner says that she's going to publish a special report about the use of non-government emails and deleted messages related to the Greenbelt. The Ford government removed land from the Greenbelt to build 50,000 homes in 2022 before reversing course. And reports from the Auditor General and Integrity Commissioner found that the process favored certain developers. Privacy Commissioner Patricia Kasim says that her office is working on 19 active access to information appeals that are similar to concerns raised by Ontario NDP leader Mart Stiles.
I think, first of all, that and I know you've, of course, viewed dozens of emails that were sent to and received by Mr. Sackville using a Gmail account in which documents were shared. I think the Premier's Chief of Staff appears to have repeatedly misled the Integrity Commissioner under oath, and that this is another example of a member of the Premier's senior team hiding things from the public. So I'm not mincing words. I think Mr. Sackville should resign, and if he won't, the Premier should fire him.
The RCMP is now investigating the Greenbelt removal process.
Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie spoke out against the Ford government's plan to expand alcohol sales, saying the Premier is spending $1 billion of taxpayer money just to roll it out a year ahead of schedule.
Our healthcare system is in crisis. $1 billion could hire 12,000 more nurses. Our schools are crumbling. $1 billion could hire 12,000 more teachers or ensure that our schools have proper air conditioning so our kids aren't sweating in class. Our roads are gridlocked. $1 billion could deliver all-day two-way GO train service to Niagara. But that's not what matters to Doug Ford. He doesn't care about you waiting 12 hours in an ER or that your kids are struggling to keep up in the classroom. He's not in it for you or your family.
Last week, Premier Doug Ford announced that beer and wine would be available in convenience, grocery, and big box stores starting late this summer and fall. A coalition of health groups has already spoken out against the idea, warning that there is no strategy in place to address the increased harms that'll come with increased access to alcohol.
And shareholders of Indigo, they voted in favor of selling their stock and the company going private. So the deal at $2.50 a share gives Trilogy Retail Holdings Incorporated and Trilogy Investments LP, Trilogy, control of the retailer. The company is owned by Gerald Schwartz, who already held over 50% of Indigo shares. He's also the spouse of Indigo founder and CEO Heather Reisman.
A government official in Papua New Guinea says more than 2,000 people were killed in Friday's landslide, much more than previously thought.
Yeah, let's bring in CTV's Tony Grace with the latest. Tony, hearing reports about this, a lot of people were literally buried alive, and it looks like this landslide may have been even more devastating than originally feared.
And guys, yeah, that toll is more than triple the original estimate on Friday. Look, this happened overnight on Friday when most people were sleeping, and it happened after weeks and weeks of heavy rain in the area. So this isn't a very remote mountainous area of Papua New Guinea. And part of the problem in even assessing how bad things are and in trying to get to people who may still be stuck under the debris. You can see here people have been using their hands and sticks. That's how desperate things have become to try and move that debris. By the way, up to 6 to 8 meters of debris from this landslide. Part of the problem is not only the tough terrain in this area, but tribal warfare in the area means that the aid workers and experts who have been able to get to the scene are being shuttled in and escorted under military escort and then brought back to the capital each night. So you have all kinds of factors here slowing down the response to what appears to be a growing global tragedy. This area on the map that's highlighted shows you the area of Papua New Guinea. It's a mountainous region that is home to about 4,000 people. And of course, this landslide hitting on Friday, just unleashing sheer devastation, which, as I mentioned, is about a 6 to 8 meter thick layer of earth, rocks, and debris that people are trying to dig through. And a little bit more perspective now from one aid organization on the task at hand. Let's have a listen.
There is water flowing underneath the debris and the floor, soil, ground on which the debris sits. So we fear that this mud can turn the ground into a slide.
The first excavator was only brought in yesterday, and Papua New Guinea's nearest neighbor, Australia, is among those offering help immediately, offering to send aircraft and other equipment to the area to help out. Australia's Prime Minister saying today, and Defense Minister saying, their heart goes out to their neighbors. They're going to do what they can to get aid there quickly. Canada's International Development Minister also with his eye on the situation today, saying that Canada stands ready to help should any assistance be needed. The world community sort of mobilizing now as the extent of this devastation becomes more clear after that landslide in Papua New Guinea. Bakari and Lena?
All right, CTV's Tony Grace reporting live. Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tony. And coming up next on CP24 Live, we're going to take a look at the city's latest move to help ease gridlock.
We are eager to see this technology in action, to see how it can help us solve the problems like blocking the box, because that holds up traffic and makes our road less safe for everyone. Keeping cars out of transit lanes, getting a better and bigger view of how traffic is moving along the whole corridor so we could move it along.
And Toronto's partnering with the province to create traffic pilot zones. This is where companies are going to be able to test out technologies to improve urban mobility. And right now we're joined live by Maddie Semiatiki, professor of geography and planning and director of the Infrastructure Institute at the University of Toronto. So, Maddie, we just heard Mayor Chow talk about blocking the box. Literally, that means sitting in the intersection while the other flow of traffic has right of way. Nobody can move. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, blocking the box, is that not one of the most frustrating experiences when you're trying to get through and someone else is in that lane? Some of these technologies, I think what they're going to be looking for is how can they use video and digital types of technology to understand who's in the box, how long they've been there, and whether they can create new mechanisms to move people along. We know that they've brought in the old-fashioned way where they now have stewards at some of the major intersections trying to direct traffic and move people along. Can technology help and bring this to more lanes so it's not just people on the street trying to guide the traffic, but now we can use technology to make the whole system more efficient?
Okay, so Maddie, what about just basic timing of traffic lights? How does this differ? Does it assist?
there have been dreams going back decades that we'd have automated traffic lights, that it would be able to make sure that when you're coming up to the light, it's always green for you. But keep in mind, when it's green for you, it's red for someone else. And that's always been the challenge. Perhaps with new AI technologies, they can get more efficient. We think we can squeeze more efficiency out of the network. But overall, we have too many cars for not enough road space. This will make some difference, but it's not going to transform the gridlock that we're experiencing today.
Okay, Maddie, you don't give me too much confidence when you say we've had dreams for decades. Have any other major cities, enacted this type of technology?
Yeah, there are examples from Sydney, Australia, where they've brought in some of these technologies on the traffic lights. That technology has now gone global. We have companies here, companies like MyoVision, which has been a real innovator in trying to use some of these smart city technologies, and they sell it all around the world. We have other companies. We have Geotab, which has done stuff around logistics. We have a company called Pantonium, which is looking at on-demand transit buses. So we have technologies here. We need to pilot them, and I do think this is a good idea that we're experimenting, but we shouldn't put too much hope on technology to be all of our salvation. We have major challenges that we have to face.
Okay, so Maddie, since this whole debacle began with the Gardner construction, what have you noticed about traffic flow up until today?
It's terrible. It's terrible everywhere because it's not just the Gardner. It's on parallel routes. It's on different types of modes and infrastructure that's being built. Sometimes it's road construction. Sometimes it's energy. Sometimes it's water and sewers. So it's really caused gridlock. And what you see is that it fans out from one link that's out of action, and it just fans out across the entire network. The key is that we have public transit. You can see in this image right along that stretch of the Gardner, there's public transit adjacent. We need to be providing people with all sorts of alternatives and making it easier for them to link their public transit trips so that they can use it as a viable alternative to trying to fight congestion in our region.
And Maddie, what about the challenges that city engineers, city planners, they face when trying to, make use of this technology?
We're risk averse in this city. We really tend to like to go slow to understand all the implications. We do everything by pilot studies and pilot programs. I think that's good that we learn, but we are going to have to be ambitious. And then there's cost. All of these technologies come with a financial cost, and there's no guarantee that they'll work. The city is struggling financially. So there's a long way to go before a small pilot becomes something that can be used across the entire network. But it's great that we're innovating, and it's great that all three orders of government are coming together to try to make us more efficient.
And Maddie, final words?
I hope this works, and I think everyone in the city should be looking for it, but we shouldn't be pinning all of our hopes on new technologies. There are some old approaches, public transit, walking, cycling, finding other alternatives, carpooling, all sorts of ways that we're going to need to go if we're going to make our city's congestion a little lighter.
All right, Maddie Simiatiki, Professor of Geography and Planning and Director of the Infrastructure Institute at the University of Toronto. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bakari.
And coming up next on CP24 Live at Noon, we will speak to the Canadian Civil Liberties Association about U of T seeking a court injunction to remove a pro-Palestinian encampment. Stay with us.
The University of Toronto says that it's going to try to go to court to clear a pro-Palestinian encampment on its campus. This is while it tries to engage in discussions with student protesters.
And for a closer look at this latest development, we're joined live by Anaïs Bussière-McNichol, a lawyer and director of the Fundamental Freedoms Program at the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, the CCLA. Anaïs, thank you for joining us. First of all, what is your reaction to U of T filing an injunction to evict these pro-Palestinian student protesters? Let's begin there.
Well, we're certainly concerned to learn that the University of Toronto is seeking an injunction to dismantle the encampment. I mean, the university's very own policies recognize that its students have a right to express themselves and to peacefully protest, including on campus. And these rights are also guaranteed by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So it is somewhat disappointing that the University of Toronto, after engaging in discussions with protesters, decided to change its approach and to seek the complete dismantlement of the encampment.
And an injunction hearing is going to take place later this week. Do you think the school will win its fight? Now, I ask that, with consideration of what happened with McGill University.
Yes, I mean, the question will be whether first or not there is an emergency. And we know that in McGill, in Montreal, the court found that there was no emergency. And then the question will be whether or not freedom of protest and freedom of free expression are involved. and also whether the University of Toronto has a right to claim that the encampment be dismantled.
Anais, the school has made it very clear that where the students are is private property, and the deadline to leave has now passed. The students, on the other hand, say they will not leave until their needs are met. Do the students have a legal obligation to leave because that property is private? And what is your message to the protesters that are there and the school administration?
Well, certainly it will be up to the courts to decide that. And I think that the notion of private property must be interpreted in light of the communal purpose of a university campus. So historically, university campuses have been places for public debate, exchange of ideas, and expression of dissent. So as I said, the university's very own policies recognize that. So seeking the complete dismantlement of the encampment, to me, is not a reasonable limit to freedom of speech, but that will be to the court to decide.
And the university said that it was willing to take all necessary legal steps to clear the encampment. Do you have concerns about what happens if the school issues an order to police to move in?
Well, from what I understand, the police still has the liberty to decide whether or not to comply with that order. So it will be up to the police to decide whether or not there's a threat, for instance, to human safety. And in such circumstances, it's very clear. If, for instance, in case of violence, the police already has the powers and even the duty to intervene with respect to those specific individuals that are involved.
Okay,
as the case may be.
Okay. And Anais, very quickly before we let you go, how do you see this playing out in the days to come? Because, again, that trespass notice has been issued. That deadline has come and gone. How would you like to see this play out?
Well, I don't know about what I would like, because I would not have liked this injunction to be filed. However, I know that there is a case management conference that is scheduled, I think, for tomorrow morning. So we'll know more about when the court intends to hear the injunction application, and we'll take it from that. So CCLA is obviously monitoring very closely this file.
Okay. Anais Boussière-McNichol, a lawyer and director of the Fundamental Freedoms Program at the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate this.
Thanks, Anais.
Thank you for having me.
And coming up next on CP24 Live at noon.
A teen boy is the city's latest murder victim. He died in hospital after being shot overnight in the Warden and Danforth Road area. We'll have the latest on the investigation coming up. Stay with us.
A teenage boy is the city's latest murder victim. He died in hospital after being shot overnight in the Warden and Danforth Road area. Here's a live look at that scene right now.
The University of Toronto says it will meet with pro-Palestinian protesters today after they refused to leave at 8 a.m. That was the deadline.
And a solidarity gathering was held at a Jewish school hit by gunfire over the weekend. The mayor and police chief, they attended to show their support.
Good afternoon and welcome to CP24 Live at noon. I'm Lena Lattifat.
And I'm Bakari Savage. So a boy's dead after a shooting in the East End overnight.
Police are at Warden Avenue and Cataraqui Crescent. That is north of Danforth Road. This is a live shot as that investigation continues. Here's what we can tell you about this. A teen boy was shot around 1 a.m. and he was pronounced dead in hospital. No word on the age of the boy or if there are any suspects. You can see an area has been cordoned off. This appears to be a residential neighborhood. Keep it here on CP24 as we keep a close eye on this developing story.
Well, politicians rallied in support of the Jewish community after a North York Jewish girls' school that was hit by gunfire over the weekend.
CP24's Courtney Heels is at the school near Dufferin and Finch and joins us live with more. And the mayor was there too, Courtney.
That's right. Along with Toronto's Police Chief Myron Demke, there were actually several people speaking at this solidarity gathering. The idea behind it was to show support for this school community, for the staff, for the parents, of course, for the students, but also for the Jewish community. And there really was a huge turnout for this gathering. In fact, so much so they actually shut down the roads. So we had a chance to hear from the principal here at the school. We also heard from some parents, also some elected officials, including the Education Minister, Stephen Lecce. Mayor Olivia Chow spoke briefly. And again, the message was very clear that they are going to support this community. While many acknowledge that what happened here over the weekend was terrifying. Shots fired directly at this all-girls Jewish elementary school early Saturday morning. I'll let you hear from one parent as she was dropping off her kids early this morning.
We feel like the community stands strong. We teach that everybody's there for each other, and that's how we have to stand together, all as unity and one, and show that if you hurt one, you hurt us all.
Police obviously taking what happened here very seriously. They are still investigating. They don't have any update for us just yet, but what we do know so far, they were called to the school at about 5 a.m. on Saturday over reports of shots fired at the school. They say when they arrived, they found evidence of the gunfire. When I talked to the principal earlier, he also told me that they found that evidence. In fact, it was at the window just behind me here. It's boarded up this afternoon. They also say they have access to security footage. In that footage, the principal told me you could see a car parked across the street. Two people got out of the car. They walked right up to the fencing that actually is already in place to protect this private school, and that's when the shots were fired directly at the building. Now, we have not been given access to that video. We know, of course, police would be going over that footage as well, and we're waiting to see if they have any sort of a description for a suspect or suspects as to who's responsible for this. We can tell you, Lena Bakari, a really significant police presence in this area. First thing this morning, we were here very, very early. Police were set up just outside of the school. Many more officers were here as well over 100 people gathered to show solidarity for this community. Over to you.
All right, Courtney Heels reporting live. Well, labor unions, faculty and staff joined pro-Palestinian protesters near their encampment today as they defy a trespass order to leave King's College Circle.
CP24's Lindsay Biscaya is live from the U of T campus with the latest. Lindsay.
Yeah, that rally has since wrapped up. That was this morning, as you mentioned. A lot of people came out to show their solidarity for both the people of Palestine, but also the people here at this encampment in Toronto at U of T, where this is day 25 of students and faculty camping out, demanding a couple of different things from the university, partly to divest from any investments that support Israel, but also to cut ties with Israeli universities and academic institutions. So what stands now is, as you mentioned, that trespassing notice. The deadline was 8 a.m. today. Obviously, this encampment has not been dismantled. So now the university says it is going to be filing a court injunction to evict protesters. And we actually have a new statement from the university. So I'll read that to you now. It says the notice of motion is proceeding normally and will be accessible through the usual process once it's filed at the court at 330 University Avenue. We continue to engage in discussions with students representing those in the encampment and hope they will bring the unauthorized encampment to a peaceful end. So it usually takes about 24 to 48 hours for a court hearing to be scheduled after an injunction is filed. So we're waiting to hear what happens there. But in the meantime, we know that negotiations between the university and students picked up last night. It's expected to resume today, this evening at 5 p.m. to try to come to some kind of peaceful resolution. We also spoke just a few minutes ago, Bakari and Lena, with Erin Mackey, one of the students who has kind of become one of the media people for this encampment, and she gave us an update on the situation on the ground. Have a listen.
My tuition is being used to fund the development of weapons and bombs that are being dropped on the Palestinian people, which is why we're here, which is why, we have no other choice but to continue these negotiations. And so, the injunction was on pause until tomorrow. The court said that, they're going to postpone the hearing until tomorrow. So we'll have to kind of wait and see. But later this evening at 5 o'clock, we have another meeting with the administration to hopefully get them to commit to divestment.
We heard on Friday that the senior administration of the University of Toronto had issued an ultimatum. We recognized it for what it was, an attempt to threaten and to bully you, to force you to back down in the same way that employers and governments do to workers at the bargaining table and on the picket lines. We saw it as an attempt to sidestep good faith negotiations and to wield institutional power to avoid accountability. And we completely reject that.
Okay, so you heard from Erin Mackey, and then you just heard from a number of people who were at that rally this morning, speaking out to hundreds of people that attended. When it comes to Erin Mackey, Lena and Bakari, she also gave us a bit of an insight into what happened at yesterday's meetings and negotiations between the university and the students. She said that there was negotiations, and then the university spokespeople asked for a pause so they could review the demands that the students had. So potentially getting back tonight at the bargaining table, and maybe something will come of this, but we're also waiting to hear more more about that court injunction that will be filed by the university. So a lot here still at play. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Bakari, for now, back to you.
Okay, continuing live coverage from the campus of the University of Toronto, CP24's Lindsay Biscayne.
Peel police say they have busted a highly orchestrated auto theft ring. Investigators say they seized more than 300 stolen vehicles as part of Operation Project Odyssey. The recovered vehicles have a combined value of more than $33 million. Some of the vehicles were taken during violent carjackings. Police allege a local trucking company was facilitating shipments of stolen vehicles to the Port of Montreal, where they were to be exported to the Middle East. 16 people have been arrested in connection with the investigation, and arrest warrants have been issued for another 10. Police say 14 of the suspects identified in the probe were out on a form of release or bail for auto theft-related offenses. More than 300 charges have been laid so far. And Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown was at this morning's news conference. He joins us live with the latest. Mayor, it's good to see you. What came out of that news conference, and do you feel as if police forces are making headway? Because every day it feels like more and more families are waking up to empty driveways.
Yeah, this auto theft crisis is a national crisis. It is, the numbers are staggering across Ontario and Quebec. Record auto thefts. This has been the biggest gift to organized crime in Canadian history. $1.2 billion in 2022. The 23 numbers are coming in. It might be $2 billion to organized crime for international auto theft. But today is a bit of a celebration. The police did some great investigative work. We have the largest auto thefts commercial unit in Canada in Peel Region, and we arrest people in Peel Region. We take on difficult investigations and hold them accountable. And so the auto theft team put themselves in harm's way. They managed to get back 369 cars. They've arrested 16 individuals who are behind this criminal syndicate. 10 more there's arrest warrants issued for. And so they did great police work. And so I'm so proud of the Peel Police. They take on difficult investigations and they do their job. The only caveat in all this is the fact that once again, we have a justice system that lets them out on bail. 14 of the 16 individuals were on release for auto theft crimes. And now 8 of the people arrested just as part of this investigation have been released again. Imagine being released 3 times for stealing cars. It's just, for me, that part is frustrating, that our police do such tremendous work, and it's demoralizing to see them released so quickly.
I think the provincial government would agree with you on that. And speaking of the provincial government, recently they did announce that anybody who takes part in a violent carjacking could have their driver's license suspended. What did you make of that, Mayor? Did that go far enough?
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. Certainly, the fact these people will lose their licenses is helpful. But, these large organized crime groups, I'm not sure how much that intimidates them. I think what would intimidate them is if they didn't get released. We had one case in Brampton a year ago where someone was arrested for stealing a car. He got bail, went out to the parking lot in the courthouse and stole another car. And, it's why I went to Ottawa to meet with the Justice Minister. We have to take property crime seriously. We need to address the fact that bail does not consider property crimes to be severe. This needs to be fixed. It can't be, a loophole, a revolving door that keeps on getting abused.
You've been doing a lot to lobby the federal government to make changes to combat auto theft, specifically when it comes to legislation and stiffer penalties. Does it feel like Ottawa is listening?
So listen, I got time to talk to the Prime Minister about it in Ottawa. I've met with the Minister of Justice many times. So they're listening. My only criticism is that the response is slow. And I think this is a crisis that deserves urgency. We need scanners at the intermodal hubs in the GTA. There's 2 major rail line intermodal hubs in the GTA, one in Brampton, one in Vaughan. And the Port of Montreal, that's the elephant in the room. That's where 80% of these stolen cars are leaving the country from. And so I appreciate their listening, and I'm going to continue to push the Minister of Public Safety and the Prime Minister to not just listen, but to respond with urgency.
I want to talk about the people who are traumatized by these crimes. I'm sure as Brampton's mayor, you get stopped and asked about it all the time. How do you speak to constituents about this? What do you tell them?
Well, that's my motivation, as I get these calls on a regular basis. And what I'm hearing is, because I've been so vocal on this, I have people across the GTA call me and they'll share with me videos. I had one father who called me and showed me the video. He had someone bang down his door in broad daylight. His kids were upstairs. Imagine being a father of young children, how that's going to traumatize the children. For me, that hit home. I've got young children myself, and I couldn't imagine something, horrifying like that. And so there are too many instances like this. It's not cars being stolen in the middle of the night. Right now, we're seeing violent carjackings, doors being banged down. It's getting worse because it's so lucrative, and it's why we need to close the loopholes, and it needs to happen immediately.
It's a real problem. Brampton's Mayor Patrick Brown, thanks so much for your time and your perspective. We appreciate this.
My pleasure.
Well, Ontario's privacy commissioner says that she's going to publish a special report about the use of non-government emails and deleted messages related to the Greenbelt. The Ford government removed land from the Greenbelt to build 50,000 homes in 2022 before reversing course. Reports from the Auditor General and Integrity Commissioner found the process favored certain developers. Privacy Commissioner Patricia Kassim says that her office is working on 19 active access to information appeals, which are similar to concerns raised by Ontario NDP leader Mark Stiles.
Reports like these are actually quite rare, and they're very serious. The Information and Privacy Commissioner's 2013 special report on the Liberal gas plant scandal triggered a police investigation, which eventually sent the Liberal Premier's chief of staff to prison. The walls are closing in for the Ford Conservative government. One way or another, the truth about Ford's Greenbelt dealings is coming out of the back rooms and into the light.
The RCMP is now investigating the Greenbelt removal process.
And staying at Queen's Park, Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie spoke out against the Ford government's plan to expand alcohol sales, saying the Premier is spending $1 billion of taxpayer money just to roll it out a year ahead of schedule.
Doug Ford has shown time and time again that he's in office to cater to his wealthy, well-connected, insider friends at the expense of the people of Ontario. The major grocery chains, who are already making record profits, and big box American stores like Walmart, are going to make a killing. And he's using $1 billion of your money, of taxpayer dollars, to do it. The guy who promised yet failed to deliver, buck a beer, is now blowing $1 billion on booze.
And last week, Premier Doug Ford announced that beer and wine would be available in convenience, grocery, and big box stores starting late this summer and fall. A coalition of health groups has already spoken out against the idea, warning that there is no strategy in place to address the increased harms that'll come with increased access to alcohol.
Well, coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, another case of severe turbulence during a commercial air flight. It's left a dozen people injured. That story is after the break. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that the strikes on Rafah that killed dozens of civilians were a tragic mistake, adding that an investigation is underway. Israel is facing new condemnation for the strikes that local health officials said killed at least 45 Palestinians, including displaced people living in tents, which were engulfed by fire. Israel is a target of surging international criticism over its war with Hamas, with even some of its closest allies, like the U.S., condemning civilian deaths in Gaza. The airstrike came just hours after Hamas fired a barrage of rockets from Gaza into Israel. And the Israel Defense Forces says that they've released video today that it says shows troops operating in the Gaza Strip. The United Nations top court ordered Israel to end its military offensive in Rafah last week, but stopped short of demanding a ceasefire for the entire enclave. However, the ruling is largely symbolic. Israel has portrayed Rafah as Hamas's last major stronghold in Gaza.
And another case of severe turbulence during a commercial air flight has left a dozen people injured. The Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner, owned by Qatar Airlines, was flying from Doha to Dublin when it experienced the turbulence over Turkey. The flight continued on to Dublin, where 6 passengers and 6 crew members received medical treatment after landing. 8 were hospitalized. It comes 5 days after a man died of a suspected heart attack, and dozens of people were injured when a Singapore Airlines flight from London hit severe turbulence.
Well, former General Hospital actor Johnny was fatally shot in downtown Los Angeles. It happened over the weekend. Police say that Vactor was shot Saturday by suspects who were trying to steal the catalytic converter from his vehicle. 3 suspects, they left the scene. So far, no one's been arrested. Vactor portrayed Brando Corbin on the ABC soap opera from 2020 to 2022, appearing in more than 160 episodes before the character was written off.
Shareholders of Indigo have voted in favor of selling their stock and the company going private. The deal at $2.50 a share gives Trilogy Retail Holdings and Trilogy Investments control of the retailer. The company, owned by Gerald Schwartz, who already held over 50% of Indigo's shares. He's also the spouse of Indigo founder and CEO Heather Reisman.
Well, the Toronto company has developed a tool to judge whether an audio clip features a real human voice or one generated by AI. Well, staff at Click Health's research arm say that the method is based on vocal biomarkers. Those can include pauses when someone is speaking, takes a breath, or grasps for words, which artificial intelligence generated audio doesn't do. Well, Click has an 80% success rate when it tries to identify deepfakes, which are AI-produced videos, audio clips, or photos that look extremely real.
Via Rail is launching new early morning commuter train service between Ottawa and Toronto today. The 6:41 train will operate Monday to Thursday, leaving Ottawa at 4:19 a.m. and arriving in Toronto at 8:48. It will make 7 stops on the way, including in Kingston, Belleville, and Cobourg. Via also announced train 644, which previously operated in the afternoon between Toronto and Ottawa from Friday to Sunday, will now run every day. Via says the new schedule will offer passengers more travel options and greater flexibility.
And Toronto is partnering with the province to create traffic pilot zones. This is where companies are going to be able to test out new technologies in order to improve urban mobility.
We have a very strong congestion management plan, and this partnership is going to help us explore new ways to better manage all forms of traffic in Toronto so everyone can have a smoother journey and get to the destination quickly and safely. We're pleased to also have our partners, and it takes all hands on deck in dealing with these traffic management problems.
Well, several businesses have already signed on to participate in the project. They're being paired with telecommunications companies to test solutions that hopefully will help ease some gridlock and, make some city streets safer.
And speaking of gridlock, it is 12:52, 19 degrees. Let's check in with Angela for a look at that drive.
Yeah, good afternoon, guys. It has been quite the slow afternoon. If you're making your way out, and add to the rain and the delays, we're dealing with problems impacting the drive on the 401 into Milton. This happened before the noon hour. Jackknife transport truck was involved in a collision on the 401 westbound. This is just on the approach to Highway 25. It is the 4 left lanes that are blocked. Only the HOV lane is squeezing by, and traffic not moving from well before Trafalgar. Dairy Road steals good alternatives to get you by. Also, problems happening on the eastbound lanes of the 401. This is just east of Dixie in the Express. Now it looks like it's the 3 left lanes blocked out with this collision, also creating all sorts of delays. Now headed towards the Don Valley Parkway, getting busier on the northbound side already from Eglinton up to the 401. Southbound busy from Shepherd through the rain down to Winford, and a couple of problems outside of camera view. If you're headed a bit outside of the city on the eastbound lanes of the 401 past Highway 6 North, collision from the morning in the 2 right lanes, and problems on the northbound 404 up at 19th. Crews dealing with a collision in the right lane, so soggy and slow this afternoon. I'll send it back to you.
The CP24 traffic report is brought to you by CapitalDirect.ca.
Well, a convincing opening round win for Felix Auger-Aliassime at the French Open.
The 23-year-old served 7 aces and didn't face a break point in the straight sets victory. The match was delayed multiple times due to rain. Auger-Aliassime is going to play his next match Wednesday.
The Jays are in Chicago to take on the White Sox today, just after losing their 4-game series to the Detroit Tigers.
And the 3-2. Fly ball left field. And this game is over.
Well, yesterday's game saw Jordan Romano give up a 3-run homer in the 9th inning in the Jays' 14-11 loss. The 11 runs is the most that the Jays have scored in a game all season. They trailed by 5 Entering the fourth inning, this is before mounting a comeback that ultimately fell short, and the Jays lose the series. And they've dropped 3 straight games. Their game in Chicago gets underway today, just after 2 o'clock.
And thank you for watching CP24 Live at Noon.